Welcome back to the Knowledge Tree. Our topic today, terror management theory. Sources will be listed below. I'm your host, Christina. Hope everyone's week went well. And let's get into our discussion. Terror management theory, TMT for short, was developed in 1986 by social psychologist Jeff Greenberg, Tom Fizinski, and Sheldon Solomon, based on Ernest Becker's ideas. Ernest Becker was an American cultural anthropologist and interdisciplinary thinker and writer. In his 1974 Pulitzer Prize winning work, The Denial of Death, he argues that, quote, the basic motivation for human behavior is our biological need to control our basic anxiety to deny the terror of death, end quote. That significant function of culture is to provide successful ways to engage in death denial. Becker also noted that the root of evil lies in the selfishness of human beings seeking to protect their own existence in the face of their mortality, which he regarded as an essential aspect of human nature. Becker describes human pursuit of immortality projects or causa sui, probably stated that incorrectly, in which we create or become part of something that we feel will outlast our time on earth. In doing so, we feel that we become heroic and part of something eternal that will never die compared to the physical body that will eventually die. This gives human beings the belief that our lives have meaning, purpose, and significance in the grand scheme of things. TMT posits that while humans share with all life forms a biological predisposition toward self preservation in the service of reproduction, we are unique in our capacity for symbolic thought, which fosters self awareness and the ability to reflect on the past and ponder the future. This spawns the realization that death is inevitable and can occur at any time for reasons that cannot be anticipated or controlled. The awareness of death engenders potentially debilitating terror that is managed by the development and maintenance of cultural worldviews. Humanly constructed beliefs about reality shared by individuals that minimize existential dread by conferring meaning and value. All cultures provide a sense that life is meaningful by offering an account of the origin of the universe, prescriptions for appropriate behavior, and assurance of immortality for those who behave in accordance with cultural dictates. Literal immortality is afforded by souls, heavens, afterlives, and reincarnations associated with all major religions. Symbolic immortality is obtained by being part of a great nation, amassing great fortune, noteworthy accomplishments, and having children. Psychological equanimity also requires that individuals perceive themselves as persons of value in a world of meaning. This is accomplished through social roles with associated standards. Self esteem is the sense of personal significance that results from meeting or exceeding such standards. Three lines of research provide empirical support for TMT. The anxiety buffering function of self esteem is established by studies where momentarily elevated self esteem results in lower self reported anxiety and psychological arousal. Point two, making death salient by asking people to think about themselves dying or viewing graphic depictions of death, being interviewed in front of a funeral parlor, or subliminal exposure to the word dead or death. This intensifies strivings to defend their cultural worldviews by increasing positive reactions to similar others and negative reactions toward those who are different. Research verifies the existential function of cultural worldviews and self esteem by demonstrating that non conscious death thoughts come more readily to mind when cherished cultural beliefs or self esteem is threatened. TMT has generated empirical research, currently more than 1,500 studies, examining a host of other forms of human social behavior, including aggression, stereotyping, needs for structure and meaning, depression and psychopathology, political preferences, creativity, sexuality, romance and interpersonal attachment, self awareness, unconscious cognition, martyrdom, religion, group identification, disgust, human nature relations, physical health, risk taking, and legal judgment. Edmondson et al. Performed a cross sectional study exploring the validity of TMT in 98 people with end stage heart failure by distributing standardized questionnaires that assess levels of depressive symptoms, concerns surrounding death, and spirituality. They showed that properly functioning religious beliefs, an especially important aspect of many people's worldviews, buffered against death concerns and ultimately depression due to their role as terror management mechanisms. Neal performed a cross sectional study of 60 people with metastatic cancer, also using standardized questionnaires to gauge levels of death, anxiety, as well as self esteem. They found that self esteem served as a protective factor against death anxiety consistent with TMT. Fernandez Campos published a study conducted in Varanasi, considered the spiritual capital of India, that studied the effect of a reminder of death in 30 people with terminal cancer and 29 people with no major health concerns, and found elevated levels of worldview defense measured via attachment to India on a standardized scale after this prompt. Notably, this adaptation was present in both terminally ill patients and healthy patients, suggesting these psychological changes do not wane with chronic exposure to illness. Little performed extended narrative interviews with cancer patients and found both they and their caregivers undergoing active treatment tended to turn their close friends and family who have shared values as TMT would predict. Another study by Willis published longitudinal research around 305 patients with advanced cancer, showing that individuals with several of the defense mechanisms described by TMT, specifically attachment security, meaning in life, and self esteem, had lower rates of physical impairment and distress associated with dying. Finally, Hong published a cross sectional study using standardized surveys focusing on factors predicted by TMT to be anxiety buffering, such as levels of self esteem, resilience, and family support among 270 patients with advanced cancer. He found these inversely correlated with the degree of anxiety surrounding their death. Becker made a conclusion that humankind's traditional, quote, hero systems, including religion, are no longer convincing in the age of reason. Becker never believed that science could solve the human problem. He declared that people need new, convincing illusions that enable them to feel heroic in the grand scheme of things, a form of symbolic immortality. However, he could provide no definitive answer, mainly because he believed that no perfect solution exists. Instead, he hoped that gradual realization of innate human motivations can help to bring about a better world, producing better worldviews that offer opportunities for non destructive heroism. I find it incredibly fascinating to understand the coping mechanisms of humankind. It does allow for empathy to grow. The other side of that coin is Becker arguing that conflict between contradictory immortality projects, particularly religion, I would even argue race and culture, all of these ideas that are playing into the terror management theory is a wellspring for violence and misery and will only continue to further the racism, the nationalism, the genocide, since immortality projects, as he states, contradicts one another and threaten one's core beliefs and sense of security. I hope you enjoyed the content. My social medias, as little as they are, will be below. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Until next time, wisdom is a journey.